news on HLN. You know, I don't have a choice. If I don't pay my taxes, I'm going to jail. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? But apparently that's not the case in Washington, D.C. So far, at least 3 cabinet members or nominees are being investigated for tax problems. Let's bring in our Prime News correspondent, Rochelle Carey, again. All right, Rochelle, help us out here. What's going on? And Tom Daschle, because of all this and the controversy that's ensued, he's out of there, right?
It appears so, Mike. Pressure maybe got to him.
Yeah.
Earlier today, Tom Daschle withdrew his name from consideration for the nomination to be Secretary of Health and Human Services. The former Senate Majority Leader was being investigated for failing to pay $121,000 in federal taxes. His decision to withdraw his name came just hours after Nancy Killefer did the exact same thing. Killefer was nominated to become the first Chief Performance Officer for President Obama, but she pulled out when it was discovered that she didn't pay employment taxes on her household help for more than a year. And as you probably remember, Mike, they're not the only 2 potential cabinet members that had some tax problems. The new Treasury Secretary, Timothy Geithner, didn't pay $34,000 in self-employment taxes from 2001 to 2004. Geithner says it was an unintentional error. Did you get all of that, Mike?
I did.
Did you add up all the money? Wow.
I know. Thousands there.
Yes.
Rochelle, thanks for that.
Okay.
And so as we get this straight, the new head of the Treasury Department, basically the man in charge of the IRS, didn't pay some of his taxes. And now this with Tom Daschle. I can't believe it. Let's listen to Tom Daschle. This is back in 1998. This is Daschle on the Senate floor. This is courtesy of C-SPAN. He's talking about going after tax cheaters. This is now on YouTube. Let's give it a listen.
Make no mistake, tax cheaters cheat us all. And the IRS should enforce our laws to the letter.
Really, Tom? There you have it. It sounds like hypocrisy to me. For this to happen to 3 nominees, it makes me wonder just how many other lawmakers are getting away with this. And as far as Barack Obama's cabinet, who's doing the vetting here? Let's bring in Ken Vogel from Politico. He's going to help us sort this out, along with Chris Markowski from Watchdog on Wall Street. It's the name of his radio show, and watchdogonwallstreet.com if you want more via the internet and taking your calls at 1-877-TEL-HLN. All right, Ken, why'd he bow out? Pressure just got to him, as Rochelle said?
Well, look, we have the rule of 3 here, Mike. Anytime you get one guy who didn't pay his taxes, you know, it's a story. Clearly, if that guy is in charge of the IRS, it's more of a story. Then you get number 2, and maybe there's a problem with the vetting process. Number 3, it's a full-blown story, and I think the pressure did get to Daschle here, but I think that there may be something else going on. He probably had the votes to withstand this and get confirmed. However, the Senate Finance Committee was also looking at questions surrounding his taking free travel from a nonprofit corporation and also his taking $220,000 in speaking fees from healthcare groups that he would be required to regulate as Secretary of Health and Human Services. So the combination of the 3 tax cheats as well as these other questions, I think, got to him.
Good point, Ken. It did add up for Tom Daschle. But, Chris, let's get back to the basic point. Is it too much to ask for people who are going to be our leaders to pay their taxes?
No, I don't think it's too much to ask, but I think that the real question is now, let's give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Let's say that they all made honest mistakes. Every single one of them didn't know. If there was ever a better argument for taking the tax code, encasing it in lead, and shooting it into the sun, I couldn't think of a better one. The tax code is over 3 million words long, 10 times the size of War and Peace. How can anybody understand it, especially we peasants here?
Okay, I agree with you on that front, but that's not an excuse I'm going to come up with or my viewers can come up with. Oh, I didn't understand the tax code. It's complicated for all of us, and we're all required to pay our taxes. And we'd expect people like Timothy Geithner and Tom Daschle to know the tax codes, especially a guy like Geithner, who's going to be above the IRS.
We're going to be making our checks out to Timothy.
Right?
You make your check out to the U.S. Treasury. He's heading up the entire department. I mean, what happens when you go into an audit? You're going to pull out, it's like Monopoly, you're going to pull out your get-out-of-audit-free card. I got my Daschle card and my Geithner card. They did it, so I'm going to do it too. I mean, this opens up a whole legal can of worms.
Yeah, and it's a horrible message to us, the people. We expect them to be our leaders. Let's see what the folks are saying out there. Let's get to the calls. Kathleen in Ohio. Kathleen, go ahead.
Oh, yes. Okay, my husband last year had filled out our taxes and didn't claim my measly $300 a month Social Security. We got a certified letter from IRS, and we owe $500 on taxes. If we didn't pay it, then it would be increased every month with a penalty and interest. How can you owe $140,000 and not know it? Can you explain that to me?
Kathleen, great call there. And Chris, that's what we're talking about here. She's getting a book thrown at her. and she's trying to make ends meet. And Daschle and Geithner, oh, they forgot unintentional errors. It didn't work for Kathleen, obviously.
You're spot on, and it's not just them. What about Charlie Rangel? What about that whole controversy from last year? House Ways and Means Committee. He writes the tax laws, for crying out loud. He can't get them right. You know, like I said, once again, assuming that these guys were actually honest, we need to start over. We need to get rid of this tax code because it's a ridiculous burden, hurting Americans out there that make slight mistakes and they have to pay huge interest payments. It's awful.
Okay. Hey, Ken, help us out here. And a lot of people have been asking this one. Maybe you can help clear it up. What's the difference between Geithner's issue and Daschle?
Well, first of all, Geithner is, as we just talked about, overseeing the IRS. However, he was in. His was a little bit smaller as far as the amount of back taxes owed. And I think this does sort of beg the question as to what else was out there on Daschle. I mean, Daschle is just as important to the administration's policy goals as Geithner was. There are no two bigger issues right now for the Obama administration than health care and the economy. These are the guys that are overseeing it. So the fact that they weren't willing to go to the mat for Daschle, or that Daschle felt that it wasn't worth it, that there was going to be sort of more coming out, or that he couldn't count on the Democratic votes to get him confirmed, to me suggests that there was something else going on there. One other point to make, though, is that this is not, you know, we talk about paying your taxes. This is a little bit of an extra amount of scrutiny here. These are really intensive, sort of comprehensive vetting processes where these folks have to go back through all their financial records and fill out these extensive forms. I think if a lot of your viewers were forced to get this level of scrutiny, they might find that they, too, had some discrepancies in their finances.
No, I hear you on that front. I expect more from them, but you make a point, and I'm not going to say that the tax code's not confusing. I agree on that front. Guys, we're going to have to leave it there. Ken Vogel, Chris Markowski, we appreciate it.